Hey everybody, you're at home with a geek. I'm Mark, aka the little black dude. Reboots. Reboots have been happening like crazy for the last almost decade now. We've seen so many things get rebooted and changed and shifted around, and it's just been ridiculous and insane. And I have always been one to say, why can't they just leave things alone? It was fine the way it was, why can't they just leave it alone? Well, I just saw the trailer for the new Ducktales show, and I gotta say, this is a reboot in the right direction. Just from what I've seen so far, it has this feel that does more for the show than the original show did. Okay? One of the things that I did like about DuckTales was that it was a larger-than-life type show. And for the 80s and early 90s, that worked really well. But we have a lifestyle now where trying to make things look larger than life is common. This time, it plays from both ends. On the one hand, they have the family feeling a lot more united, what with Donald still being there instead of, being off in the Navy, as well as the characters feeling like the old characters, but having a lot more of what we were missing, basically. Okay? Most reboots are seeking to update an older property for a new generation, which oftentimes doesn't go well. Perfect example of that, The Grinch and Cat in the Hat. You can also cite a number of comic book movies, but I won't go into that, otherwise we'll be here all night. But what I've seen so far with the DuckTales reboot, just with the trailer and with the voice actors that have been around there, they're trying their best to hold on to what made people love DuckTales so much, while still giving it a unique feel, something that's different from what the original show was, without losing the original show. And I think that's important. With that in mind, there are other properties you could do this with as well. Not only could you do it, you could improve on it. Like, for example, look at Thundercats, which should have gotten a second season. The reboot of Thundercats was so good in comparison to how the original show was, which was iconic, but it wasn't well made. Let's be honest. The original Thundercats was pretty much a cash grab for people who were fans of He-Man. Okay? That's really all there was to it. But the newer version of Thundercats touched on things that we weren't really looking at. For example, making Lion-O and Tigra brothers, that was amazing. The fact that Panthro, even though he was a completely different type of character, still had everything that made him Panthro was an amazing thing. And then having him and Groon being partners in crime, essentially, that made such a difference. These kind of connections made the show better, which is a rare thing for me to say, because I hate reboots. It's like reboots are an easy way of making money for a lot of production companies, and it doesn't work well for me because oftentimes they rely on the name carrying things through, and it shouldn't be like that. But what I'm seeing with the DuckTales reboot makes me think that some other properties could get rebooted. Like, for example, one of my favorite shows from the 80s, Silverhawks. You could do so much with that in 2017, okay? I mean, if you can reboot Power Rangers and make it look completely different from the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, you could do the same thing with Silverhawks and do so much better. I mean, mixing animation and CGI is something that you see a lot anyway, and I think it would work well with that particular series. I would love to hear recasts of voice actors. I would love to see some of the others come back, especially since Monstar, who was one of the main villains, well, he was the main villain in that show, showed up in the reboot of Thundercats. I think they could pull it off. Another thing that I would love to see getting rebooted would be movies from the 80s that had a good premise, but were just so dated that they didn't age as well as they could have. Short Circuit is a perfect example of this. I loved both Short Circuit and Short Circuit 2, but they are so aggressively 80s. Not to mention, the brown face that was pulled off in there with the character Ben. really could be done better. So a reboot of Short Circuit with better actors, as well as either a practical effect or CGI of Johnny Five, I think would be amazing. But what do you think? What is something that you would love to see rebooted that you think could be done better? Leave a comment in the down low and let's get a conversation going. If you're new here, please come by and subscribe, because I'm happy to see new people. And if you want to see other things that I do, check out some of my other videos. Until next time, this is the Little Black Dude. Stay geek and proud.